The hospital corridor did not quiet down. It remained active through the night, though nothing urgent was announced. Outside the emergency unit, Cho Sha stayed seated. His back was straight. His hands did not move. He did not speak to staff or check his phone. He looked only at the entrance. Inside, Gu was unresponsive. The city was marking the Mid-Autumn Festival. Lanterns had been lit elsewhere. In the hospital, no one mentioned the date. Time was measured only by procedures. Nurses passed. Doors opened and closed. Cho Sha remained where he was. When Gu's condition was listed as critical, Gu Rong arrived. He came alone. His arrival was immediate, without hesitation. The habits of his profession guided him. He contacted a former colleague, now in charge of a major medical center. He requested oversight. The request was approved without discussion. Resuscitation efforts continued for nearly 2 hours. Protocols were followed precisely. Additional interventions were attempted. The outcome did not change. Gu was declared deceased. Gu Rong had retired years earlier, his career marked with long service and recognition. His name still carried weight in medical circles. That night, it provided no protection. He stood at a distance and observed. Cho Sha responded differently. When informed, he rushed forward. He clutched Gu's body. His voice rose. His movements became erratic. Staff restrained him when he struck the wall with his head. He did not manage to injure himself. Others noticed. Sympathy formed quickly. He lowered himself in front of Gu's parents. He apologized repeatedly. He spoke of failure. He pledged continued responsibility toward the family. These statements were made openly, within hearing range of staff and visitors. Gu Rong listened. He did not interrupt. The grief appeared real. It was not composed. It was also not reassuring. One detail remained unresolved. Gu had no documented history of severe illness. Childhood records showed minimal intervention. As an adult, her health was described as stable. 2 years ago, symptoms began without pattern. Episodes of dizziness, visual narrowing, tightness in the chest, difficulty breathing. Medical consultations followed. Tests returned inconclusive. Cardiac involvement was suspected. It was never confirmed. Gu Rong was allowed to view the body later that night. He did so alone. He noted the dilated pupils, discoloration along the skin, abdominal swelling, traces of fluid and partially digested food near the mouth. The official cause listed respiratory failure, followed by cardiac arrest. Gu Rong did not challenge the sequence. He questioned the origin. In his experience, cardiac conditions did not present this way. The signs were familiar to him from other cases. He did not raise objections. No discussion occurred. The suspicion remained internal. Without comment, he collected a small amount of material expelled during Gu's collapse. He sealed it and kept it with him. No explanation was offered. After midnight, the hospital activity slowed. The date shifted to September 12th. Gu Rong asked Cho Sha to step aside. They stood away from others. The exchange was brief. Gu Rong referenced only time and presence. From the end of dinner to the emergency admission, only 2 individuals had been in the apartment. He asked what had occurred. Cho Sha reacted immediately. His posture changed. His hands lifted. He spoke rapidly. He denied causing harm. He repeated his devotion to his wife. The denial continued without pause. Gurong did not respond. No accusation was made. No witness later heard hearing one. The uncertainty remained. Gurong formally requested a post-mortem examination. The request was procedural and required no justification. Approval followed quickly. Cho Sha did not respond at first. When he did, his knees gave way. He collapsed. Observers noted fear mixed with grief. The reaction exceeded expectation. The examination was scheduled for September 13th. That afternoon, the forensic room was prepared. Instruments were laid out. Documentation began. The area was secured. Cho Sha entered without permission. He placed himself between the body and the examiners. He dropped to his knees. His voice carried through the room. He appealed to those present. Several men attempted to guide him away. He resisted, but did not strike anyone. Movement stopped. The procedure was delayed. He addressed Gurong directly. His tone shifted. The words were no longer pleading. He questioned the necessity of the examination. He described it as unnecessary damage. He framed it as cruelty rather than process. Others intervened. Their voices were measured. They explained the purpose of a forensic examination. They stated that it could clarify uncertainty. They noted that it could remove suspicion rather than confirm it. The explanation did not calm him. His agitation increased. The interruption extended for hours. At approximately 6 in the evening, Cho Sha was persuaded to leave the room. Only then did the examination proceed. No further resistance occurred. The forensic work was completed the same day. The report was finalized on September 14th. The findings were direct. Ketamine was present throughout the digestive tract. Blood concentrations exceeded therapeutic thresholds by a significant margin. The substance was identified as a short-acting anesthetic. It was described as colorless, odorless, and readily soluble. No cardiac abnormality sufficient to explain death was recorded. The cause was no longer ambiguous. Ketamine suppresses respiratory function when absorbed orally in large quantity. Oxygen saturation declines. Cardiac rhythm destabilizes. Loss of consciousness occurs rapidly. Death can follow without prolonged distress. The substance is regulated. Distribution is restricted. Access is limited to controlled medical environments. After reviewing the findings, Gurong contacted law enforcement. The classification of the death was amended. An inquiry began immediately. Investigators first examined Gu's daily routine. Colleagues described consistency. She arrived on time. Her behavior was stable. Relationships at work were unchanged. No withdrawal was noted. No emotional volatility was recalled beyond ordinary stress. 2 days before the festival, she asked her husband to deliver medicine to a sick coworker. When they met at her workplace, their interaction appeared familiar and relaxed. It attracted no attention, precisely because it was ordinary. She spoke about upcoming plans, practical details, arrangements for the holiday. No statements suggested finality. The possibility of self-harm was removed from consideration. Medical error was evaluated next. Emergency records were reviewed line by line. Medication logs were cross-checked. The attending physician was interviewed. Ketamine was not administered during resuscitation.
It did not appear in treatment documentation. Dosage records were consistent. No discrepancy was found. That explanation was also eliminated. One conclusion remained. The substance entered her body before hospital admission. The method required access. It required proximity. It required opportunity. Investigators returned their focus to Cho Xiao. His behavior during the proposed autopsy was documented. The resistance was noted. The timing was preserved. Hospital records revealed his signature on a controlled substance withdrawal form. The entry listed ketamine. The documentation was complete. An empty vial was later recovered from household waste. The lot number matched hospital.
The arrangement was structured. Gu Rong noticed it. Chao Jiao understood that attention carried value. He responded without debate. He remained physically present. He assisted with errands. He made himself useful. The gestures were frequent and practical. They were accepted. What followed was unexpected. Gu Rong raised a personal question. Chao Jiao hesitated before answering. He stated that he was not involved with anyone. The question was not connected to academic performance. It was not recorded. Gu Rong's interest did not center solely on Chao Jiao. He had 2 daughters. Neither had entered medicine. The absence had remained unresolved. Professional continuity mattered to him, though it was never discussed openly. His elder daughter, Gu, worked as an accountant at a construction inspection office. Her employment was stable. Her social life was limited. She attracted little attention. Approaching her late 20s, she remained unmarried. Time became a recurring consideration. Chao Jiao appeared to resolve multiple concerns simultaneously. An introduction was arranged. There was no delay from either side. Contact led to meetings. Meetings became routine. The progression was uninterrupted. No objections were raised. In 1997, the marriage was formalized. The ceremony followed convention. Vows were spoken before relatives and colleagues. Chao Jiao addressed Gu Rong directly. He promised to care for Gu. Gu Rong accepted the statement without hesitation. After completing his master's degree, Chao Jiao's employment changed. Through professional recommendation, he was placed at Suzhou Children's Hospital. The position offered higher compensation, improved benefits, and clearer advancement. His technical competence was not questioned. Several years later, a local newspaper reported on a complex laparoscopic procedure performed on an infant with congenital biliary atresia. The patient was 2 months old. The operation was described as unprecedented within the region. Chao Jiao was named as the lead surgeon. Within the hospital system, his reputation strengthened. Years into the marriage, Gu gave birth to a daughter. From the outside, the structure appeared complete. Career progression, family formation, and social standing aligned. To observers, the outcome suggested stability. To Chao Jiao's parents, it did not. Before the wedding, they had known of another woman. His son had been involved with a primary school teacher. The relationship had lasted several years. Marriage had been discussed. When the wedding invitation arrived, the name surprised them. No objection was voiced. The prior relationship ended quietly. No public explanation was offered. The timing coincided with Chao Jiao's increasing reliance on Gu Rong's professional support. At the wedding, Chao Jiao's parents met Gu for the first time. Comparisons were made internally. The outcome was unfavorable. Nothing was said aloud. Chow Zhao's public image remained intact. Accounts circulated regarding his conduct as both student and physician. He was described as diligent, responsive, considerate. Families of patients spoke well of him. Colleagues sought his guidance. Requests were fulfilled promptly. At Gu's workplace, the couple was regarded as compatible. The husband appeared attentive. The wife appeared settled. In the summer preceding her death, Gu received a promotion. 2 days before the Mid-Autumn Festival, Chow Zhao visited her office again to deliver medicine. Colleagues were present. Conversation remained casual. A brief exchange between husband and wife drew quiet approval. No disagreement was observed. The image remained intact. Privately, the structure differed. Affection did not define the marriage. From its beginning, Chow Zhao treated it as functional. Emotional attachment was absent. The relationship existed to secure stability and advancement. His professional rise had followed the reach of his father-in-law's influence. He understood the sequence without confusion. Not long after the marriage, an external matter intervened. Chow Zhao's parents' residence was scheduled for demolition. Compensation discussions followed. The timing would later attract attention. When the house was demolished, no immediate replacement was available. His parents requested temporary accommodation while a new residence was arranged. The request was granted formally. Comfort was not included. They were assigned to the basement. The arrangement lasted 10 months. Chow Zhao's mother later described the situation as imposed rather than chosen. She attributed the outcome to her daughter-in-law's refusal. She stated that the apartment had been allocated through Gu's workplace and permission had not been granted. Responsibility, in her account, did not rest with her son. After the birth of the child, conditions shifted slightly. The parents received more consideration. Chow Zhao's mother interpreted this as acknowledgement of their contribution to child care. They assisted daily with their granddaughter. Accounts from Gu's colleagues differed. They described her as attentive toward her parents-in-law, often more so than toward her own parents. After work, she frequently traveled a longer distance to dine at their home. The visits were not framed as obligation. For the Mid-Autumn Festival, she prepared a red envelope. The amount was modest, approximately $85. It was designated for her parents-in-law. Chow Zhao's father later stated that the money covered food expenses. They prepared dishes Gu preferred. Their own meals remained simple. Leftovers were common. Perception remained divided. Chow Zhao's family believed they were regarded as lesser. Class differences were noted, though rarely addressed directly. One incident was repeated often. A week after Chow Zhao's wedding, his elder brother married. The venue was slightly more expensive. Members of Gu's family did not attend. Objections were raised. The explanation was never clarified. For Chow Zhao, the incident remained unresolved. No formal dispute was recorded between the families. Accommodation became routine. Initially, resentment was not explicit. Over time, it accumulated. Chow Zhao believed he was the one adjusting. Recognition from his wife did not follow. Admiration, which he valued, was absent. Tension developed without confrontation. In public, the marriage remained intact. Privately, the household followed a fixed routine. Both worked during the day. Evenings were spent at his parents' home for dinner and childcare. After returning, Gu watched television or sent messages. Chow Zhao used the computer or worked on doctoral coursework. Conversation was limited. According to a close acquaintance, conflict was avoided rather than resolved. Neither initiated discussion.
Divorce was treated as something the other would need to propose. Gu stated once that if her husband requested separation, she would accept it. She also believed herself to be less educated. The imbalance shaped her behavior. She accommodated, she adjusted, she monitored his health closely. When he began losing hair, she searched for remedies. Treatments were obtained through personal contacts, including from outside the city. The effort continued over time. It did not alter his behavior. Outwardly, he remained composed. Privately, fidelity had already ended. His relationships extended beyond a single affair. Within the hospital, attention followed status. Nurses and interns were aware of his position. In the year 2000, he began a relationship with a nurse surnamed Jiang. After that, the pattern repeated. The affairs varied in duration, not in purpose. They provided admiration. Gu noticed inconsistencies. On one occasion, another woman was found inside the home. The explanation offered was procedural. A patient, a pharmaceutical representative. The account was accepted without dispute. Messages were concealed. Phones were guarded. Suspicion formed without confirmation. Gu spoke only to her sister. Her parents were not informed. Among the women involved, 2 remained significant. One was a physician named Zhang Fan, working at a district hospital. Another was a nurse employed at Chu Xiao's workplace. The relationship with Zhang Fan continued. She pressed for divorce. Chu Xiao refused. Separation was never considered viable. The reason was not attachment, it was consequence. Divorce would invite attention. It would prompt scrutiny from Gu's family and from the institutions that had supported his advancement. Reputation and position were bound to the marriage. Preservation was chosen. At the same time, an alternative was calculated. The resolution he settled on removed confrontation entirely. If Gu died unexpectedly, time would complete the process. Mourning would pass. Remarriage would remain possible. Professional standing would remain untouched. The method required patience. Ketamine was removed from the hospital in small quantities. The withdrawals were gradual. The substance was brought home routinely. It was introduced into beverages, coffee, tea. Dosages were controlled. Symptoms followed. They resembled cardiac illness. Examinations produced no clarity. Intervention changed nothing. The process continued for approximately 2 years. Dosage was increased incrementally. Pressure outside the marriage intensified. Zhang Fan demanded resolution. She stated clearly that the relationship would end without divorce. In late August and early September of 2003, the pattern changed. On August 27th, 3 doses were added to Gu's coffee. On September 5th, the same amount was used again. Each time, Chu Xiao prepared the drink. He instructed her to consume it while hot. He then left for duty at the hospital. The timing was deliberate. Illness followed quickly. Pain developed. Breathing became labored. Gu called repeatedly. He did not return. Unable to endure the symptoms, she contacted her father. When Gu Rong arrived, Chu Xiao was already present. He appeared attentive. He did not intervene. Gu Rong transported his daughter to the hospital himself. Examinations produced no diagnosis. She survived both episodes. For Chu Xiao, the outcome confirmed feasibility. The symptoms were observable. The cause remained hidden. September 11th followed. While Gu bathed, 5 doses of ketamine were mixed into coffee. The preparation was unhurried. Mooncakes were placed nearby. Conversation remained ordinary. After ingestion, the response came within minutes. Dizziness, slowing pulse. Chu Shao assisted her to the bedroom. He placed her on the bed. He remained outside the room. She called his name repeatedly. No response followed. He entered the kitchen and washed the cup thoroughly. The task took more than 2 minutes. The same cup was later used to prepare coffee for himself. Cleaning occurred before emergency contact was made. As her condition deteriorated, time passed. At approximately 9:50 in the evening, he contacted her parents and sister. He described the event as a recurrence. He emphasized severity. Concern was limited. Previous episodes had resolved. After the calls, neighbors were alerted. Gu was transported to a nearby hospital. Their parents were not in the city. They were at West Mountain, more than 30 miles away. They arrived after death had been pronounced. Gu Rong did not accept the explanation offered that night. The legal process followed months later. On January 2, 2004, the Suzhou Intermediate People's Court convened. Chu Shao was convicted of intentional homicide. A death sentence was issued. An appeal was filed. On June 22, the Jiangsu Provincial Higher People's Court affirmed the original judgment. No modification was made. The judicial record concluded. Those who had known Chu Shao expressed disbelief. The accounts did not alter the findings. The case closed without ambiguity.
The town sat at the edge of the peninsula, facing outward, never inward. Factories lined the roads, but no longer rushed. After the pandemic, urgency drained from daily life. People learned to wait, to delay, to order what they needed instead of going out for it. Deliveries became predictable, too predictable. One location handled most of it. A package station built into the entrance of an apartment block. Not noticeable, not avoided, used without thought. People passed through it the way they passed through hallways. Every day followed the same rhythm. The shutter lifted, shelves filled, parcels shifted. Someone moved upstairs. Someone always did. The building had 2 levels. The first belonged to the work. The second belonged to whoever needed a place to sleep. Du Jen lived there. She was 37. She ran the station. She slept above it. Her mother stayed with her. Her daughter, Bei, 13, spent the summer moving between the 2 floors. Homework beside packages. Lunch eaten on unopened boxes. Customers recognized her face before they remembered her name. Du Jen arrived every morning. She did not live there, but her routine was fixed. Same route, same spot, same time. On July 11, 2023, she arrived as usual. The street was active. People walked past. Some slowed near the station. No one entered. The shutter had not moved. That was the first inconsistency. She waited. She checked her phone. She waited again. The sound that normally greeted her was missing. No alerts, no movement, no voices traveling downward. She unlocked the door. Inside, the lights were off. She called out, once, then again. The sound reached the upper floor and came back unchanged. The stairs were directly ahead. The lock showed no damage. Nothing suggested resistance. Still, the silence remained wrong. She climbed. The door upstairs was not shut. It rested open just enough to show the room existed. She pushed it wider. What she saw did not stay with her. She turned. She missed steps. She struck the door on the way out. Her voice carried into the street without language. Neighbors understood before she could explain. The police sealed the station before noon. That day, the town's routines adjusted again. Investigators entered in order, not together, not rushed. Protective layers went on before words did. Cameras followed. Each step upward was documented. When they reached the second floor, movement stopped. The room held 3 people. None were alive. Space was limited. 2 beds occupied the corners. What could not fit vertically was pushed against walls. Daily life had been compressed until nothing remained unused. The floor existed only in narrow lines between objects. Those lines were broken. Furniture had shifted. Items lay where they did not belong. This was not the result of a single act. The pattern suggested duration, resistance, repetition. Time of death was estimated between 2 and 3 a.m. There was no secondary exit. Windows were closed. No forced entry. Outside, attention gathered instead of dispersing. Conversations layered over each other. Details changed mid-sentence. A child, all 3, family upstairs. None of it assembled cleanly. The question did not concern discovery. It concerned access. On the first floor, a camera had been installed months earlier. Its purpose was simple: theft prevention. Its placement faced outward toward the street. The footage was secured. Review did not begin with the morning. It moved backwards. Light receded. Hours collapsed. The frame settled into darkness. Between 2 and 3, the street was empty. Lamps divided the road into patches of visibility. No traffic passed. Then someone entered the frame. A man. He walked without pause. His pace did not change as he approached the station. He did not look for blind spots. He did not lower his head. He moved as someone who expected the door to open. And it did. The recording continued without interruption. A still image was extracted, clear enough, frontal. It was brought to Du Jen. She did not examine it closely. Recognition was immediate. Her body responded before speech did. The name followed. Lian Qing. Verification required little time. Records aligned. Age, height, residence, relationship. Focus narrowed. By afternoon, the city carried his face. A notice circulated. A reward attached. Phones displayed the image without context. Shops repeated the same facts. The task force did not wait. Transit points were observed. Financial records reviewed. Accommodation logs examined. Family addresses traced. One detail remained unresolved. A key. It was missing. Investigators treated it as functional, not symbolic. It explained the entry. It explained the silence. 2 days passed. On July 13th, a call redirected the search. Lian Qing was reported at his parents' rural home. Officers arrived without resistance. He did not attempt to leave. His belongings were organized, clothing prepared. The setting suggested preparation. He stood when instructed. He complied. His mother did not. She moved toward him repeatedly, asking for time, for contact, for delay. He did not respond with emotion. He repeated one statement. This was not an arrest. It was a surrender. He had placed the call himself. He wanted the reward to go to his family. The statement was recorded. Custody ended movement. It did not resolve motive. Interrogation began. Evidence followed.
With the immediate sequence established, investigators moved further back. Timelines were expanded. The focus shifted from the event to the conditions that preceded it. What was examined next was not violence, but routine. Both Lianxing and Du had been married before. For each, this was a second attempt. Statements from relatives aligned closely. Lianxing was described the same way across locations. Quiet, dependable, unremarkable in behavior. Someone who worked, sent money home, and did not draw attention. He had grown up in a rural household with limited resources. School ended early. Work began without transition. By 16, he had left home. Employment followed availability rather than interest. Construction, short-term contracts, cash labor, later basic electrical and plumbing work. He moved between sites. His parents remained in the countryside. Their health restricted income. He became the primary support. Village accounts repeated the same assessment: not expressive, not ambitious, reliable. His first marriage dissolved without incident. He worked away from home for extended periods. Time together narrowed. The separation occurred without conflict. There were no children, no property disputes. After that, he remained single. As he approached 40, concern shifted toward stability. In rural settings, prolonged single status carries weight. His parents worried less about social perception than permanence. In early 2022, a matchmaker arranged an introduction. Du. She lived in the city, divorced, one child, Bei. Their first meeting left a practical impression. She spoke calmly. Her manner suggested order. The child was quiet. For Lianxing, it appeared manageable, familiar, something that resembled the household. Within 3 months, marriage discussions began. Later accounts place imbalance at that point. According to interrogation statements supported by family testimony, finances shaped the union from the beginning. Du requested a bride price equivalent to approximately $26,000. Lianxing did not have it. He contributed what he could, less than half. The remainder was borrowed from relatives. Funds were assembled in increments. Once transferred, the marriage proceeded. Expenses continued. Housing was raised next. Du described the existing apartment as inadequate. Her mother would move in. The child needed space. The reasoning was presented as practical. Lianxing owned a 2-bedroom unit. It was old, fully paid. It was the only property registered in his name. Du proposed selling it. He agreed. The sale produced approximately $42,000. During the search that followed, Du focused on a 3-bedroom unit. The price exceeded the proceeds by nearly double. A loan was suggested. Lianxing provided the down payment. He assumed debt. At contract stage, another change was introduced. Du requested that the property be registered under her mother's name, Wang Xuan. The explanation was brief: reassurance, ease of shared living. He hesitated. The loan would remain his responsibility, ownership would not. He agreed anyway. Later, he described the decision as avoidance. He did not want disagreement at the beginning of the marriage. He considered family structure fixed, ownership secondary. Renovation followed. Design decisions were assigned to Du. His role was limited to funding. He transferred approximately $10,000. After that payment, his savings were exhausted. He returned to work outside the city. The mortgage required consistency. The borrowed bride price remained unpaid. Daily expenses continued. His responsibilities narrowed to a single direction. During the day, he worked on construction sites as an electrician and plumber. At night, he took warehouse shifts. Sleep was irregular, schedules stacked rather than rotated. In stronger months, income reached roughly $1,400. For manual labor, this was considered high. It did not accumulate. Money entered and exited continuously. Bank records later showed that in the 9 months following the marriage, approximately $21,000 was transferred to Du's account. Cash transfers were not included. When he asked how funds were used, explanations remained brief. Household costs, business needs, the delivery station required capital. What unsettled him was not spending, it was the absence of a boundary. A monthly requirement was imposed, approximately $1,100 for living expenses. If the amount was not met, he was instructed not to return home. The figure did not adjust. For a laborer working away from home, the math required precision. Earnings first, food, lodging, transport, tools. What remained was sent back. When illness or slow periods interrupted work, the numbers failed to align. To cover gaps, he turned to online lending platforms. The initial loans were small. They were intended as temporary relief. The balance did not stabilize. Interest accumulated. Repayment folded into itself. What began as temporary assistance became cyclical. He disclosed none of it, not to his parents, not to co-workers. The pressure remained contained, and over time it altered his behavior. He spoke less. He avoided contact. He smoked continuously. Questions were met with deflection. Before the Lunar New Year of 2023, he managed to reserve a small amount. The holiday approached. He decided to return home. The trip was intended to be brief. He believed proximity might correct what distance had failed to fix. He did not announce his arrival. On the way, he placed an order. Holiday food. Items meant to be shared. The address was the apartment purchased with his income, registered under another name. He arrived in the afternoon. The key did not turn. The lock had been changed. He knocked. Sound came from inside. Conversation, laughter. The smell of prepared food extended into the hallway. When the door opened, he stepped into a space already occupied. His mother-in-law, the child, another adult seated at the table. The meal was underway. No one stood. No explanations were offered. He remained near the entrance. He did not speak. He did not sit. He left without comment. That night he stayed elsewhere. An explanation followed the next day. It was framed as coincidence, a visit for the child. No implication beyond that. He did not challenge it. He returned to work. Distance resumed. Calls continued. Their timing was irregular, sometimes late, sometimes early. The pattern suggested monitoring rather than conversation. On multiple occasions, another voice was audible. Questions were dismissed. No follow-up occurred. In isolation, each detail was minor. Together, they accumulated. By June of 2023, he returned again. This time, attention replaced hope. He later described noticing items that did not belong to him, signs of routine use. The confrontation escalated quickly. Du rejected implication and redirected responsibility. His absence, his income, his insufficiency. Wang Xuan joined. The child observed. A statement ended the discussion. The property was not his. If he did not wish to stay, he should leave. He left. That night he reviewed figures without order. The bride price, the apartment sale, the mortgage, renovation costs, transfers, loans, interest. The total approached $100,000, nearly all of his accumulated labor. None of it secured ownership. In early July of 2023, he returned once more. This time, the visit was framed as negotiation. Two conditions were stated: financial transparency, termination of contact with the former husband. The response was immediate: divorce. The terms followed without delay. Ownership was documented. No division applied. All debt remained his. No assets were allocated. The discussion ended. He returned to the countryside. According to his father, his behavior changed. He remained seated for long periods. He smoked continuously. He repeated one phrase when questioned. He said he could not breathe inside. On July 10th, a purchase was recorded at a funeral supply shop. 3 sets of burial clothing. Age ranges only. No measurements.
The transaction was brief. It drew no attention at the time. Only later did it acquire meaning. Investigators would conclude that preparation preceded action. That night, he returned to the delivery station. Entry occurred without force. He possessed a key made earlier without disclosure. Movement inside followed a familiar path. What occurred upstairs was later reconstructed through evidence and admission. The sequence did not exceed minutes. Afterward, he left. The scene was not concealed. Discovery followed hours later. Identification.
The case files list them together first, then separate them by distance. Jisoo Yoon was 25. Her work placed her in Hawaii, inside a hotel's administrative system. Human resources, structured schedules, predictable routines. No internal complaints, no documented disputes. Stability was not assumed. It was recorded. Andy Ju was 26. Their connection began earlier, during secondary school. After graduation, geography intervened. He relocated north to Seattle. The separation became habitual rather than disruptive. The relationship continued without incident, at least on record. On August 9, 2024, the night preceding the Qixi Festival, Soo Yoon boarded a flight from Hawaii to Seattle. The date carried cultural weight. The travel itself did not. Airline data showed a routine arrival, no delays, no anomalies. Later that afternoon, the two were observed together. Retail stores, shopping bags, public spaces. Their movement appeared ordinary. There was no urgency in their pace. At approximately 4:45 p.m., exterior surveillance captured them entering Andy Ju's residence in Olympic Hills, a connected townhouse within a row of similar units. Both entered. No additional figures followed. The recording ended there. What occurred inside was not witnessed directly. It would later be assembled in fragments. The following morning, Andy Ju exited the townhouse alone. No luggage, no visible distress. His departure did not suggest haste. Soo Yoon did not accompany him. Around mid-morning, water began to cross boundaries. It escaped the residence and spread into shared areas between units. A neighboring resident noticed the accumulation. It was excessive, not accidental. The neighbor knocked. There was no reply. Emergency services were contacted shortly after. Fire personnel arrived just after 10:30 a.m. The building consisted of 4 connected residences. The affected unit was identified quickly. The door was approached. No response. Forced entry followed. Inside, water had already traveled beyond the bathroom. Flooring was saturated. The staircase was slick. Both the sink and bathtub faucets were fully open. Water continued to run uninterrupted. In the bathroom, a woman lay on the floor. She was unresponsive. She was later identified as Soo Yoon and pronounced deceased at the scene. The discovery did not come from someone who knew her. It came from infrastructure failure. An ice pack had been placed at her neck. A wooden object supported her head. Her body was covered with a granular substance that was not immediately classified. These details were documented without interpretation. When responders removed the ice pack, they observed a wound at the throat. Within the throat cavity was a white spherical object, significantly larger than what would normally be present. It was dense. It was foreign. The arrangement of the body did not align with any recognizable attempt at medical assistance. The bathroom itself presented contradictions. Despite the flooding, one fixture was absent. The shower head was missing from the pipe. It was not located anywhere in the residence during the initial search. Its absence was formally noted.
Attempts to contact Andy Jew began shortly after the discovery. Phone calls went unanswered. Messages were not returned. There was no immediate explanation for his absence. Investigators expanded outward. Footage from nearby properties was reviewed. One clip showed Soo Yoon and Andy Jew entering the residence together the previous afternoon. Both carried bags consistent with earlier shopping reports. There were no visible signs of distress. The next relevant recording was from the following morning. At approximately 8 a.m., Andy Jew exited the residence alone. He walked away from the unit. He did not turn back. 2 hours later, the flooding was detected. The timeline did not compress, it elongated. Neighbors were interviewed. Questions focused on the night and early morning hours, sounds, arguments, signs of struggle. No consistent disturbances were reported. No one recalled raised voices. No one described movement that suggested conflict. Each account ended the same way. Silence. One detail emerged repeatedly, unrelated to sound. That same morning, Andy Jew had repositioned the trash and recycling bins for the entire row of townhouses. He moved each unit's containers without being asked. He placed them across from the garages. This was not their usual location. Neighbors noticed because it had never occurred before. No one recalled him doing this on any prior collection day. The observation was logged. By then, the residence had already been processed. The body had been removed. The water supply had been shut off. The missing shower fixture remained unaccounted for. Andy Jew could not be located. A warrant was issued. The search was treated as time-sensitive. The next contact did not originate from patrol units. It came from a hospital. In the early hours of August 11th, staff at Northwest Medical Center contacted authorities. A nurse reported an assault in the emergency department. The assailant was a male patient. According to her statement, he approached from behind and applied pressure to her neck. She broke free and alerted security. Police arrived and detained the suspect. He identified himself as Andy Jew. The arrest did not take place at his residence. It occurred under fluorescent lighting. Staff explained his presence. Friends had brought him in earlier after observing erratic behavior. They described a rapid decline following substance use. The investigation shifted again.
Andy Jew's condition, according to those around him, deteriorated over several hours. Friends described agitation, disorganized speech, rapid shifts in focus. They attributed the change to a combination of prescribed medications and stimulants taken earlier that day. By the time they brought him to the hospital, they believed intervention was necessary. After his arrest, investigators conducted a formal interview. Andy Jew did not issue a direct denial. He stated that he might be responsible for what happened to Soo Yoon. He described his memory as unreliable, fragmented, disconnected. He said there were gaps he could not account for. He recalled placing his hands around her neck. He recalled applying force. He remembered pushing her head into a bathtub filled with water. He described seeing blood at her nose. He mentioned a towel, wiping, removing her from the tub, laying her on the bathroom floor. What followed, according to him, were attempts to help her. These actions did not correspond to recognized medical aid. He spoke of sprinkling Brazilian eyebrow powder across her body. He described placing a spherical object, approximately the size of a golf ball, into her mouth. He said it was meant to stabilize her jaw. He attributed these actions to altered perception. Earlier that day, he said, he had taken 2 types of medication along with stimulants. Because of this, he warned investigators that his recollections might not be accurate. He suggested that some memories could be hallucinations rather than events. He did not specify which details were uncertain. He did not attempt to separate imagination from action. Investigators asked about motive. They asked what disagreement had occurred, what argument had escalated, what moment had changed the situation. Andy Ju stated that there had been none, no dispute, no conflict he could recall. He then added that Soo Yoon had behaved strangely, that she had attacked him first. When asked to explain the attack, his account stalled. He did not describe a weapon. He did not describe a specific action. The statement did not develop further. Some answers expanded briefly, others ended abruptly. Several times he said he could not remember. The interview concluded there. No supplemental statement followed. Nothing was amended later. That record remained fixed. Soo Yoon's family rejected it entirely. They did not accept the explanation of fractured memory. They did not accept the role of medication or stimulants. To them, the account functioned as insulation, language that complicated responsibility rather than clarified events. They did not wait for official conclusions. Instead, they began reconstructing their own record. They contacted friends, former classmates, people who had known both individuals before Seattle. What emerged did not resemble the version presented in custody. Andy Ju was born in Shanghai. He later moved to the United States with his family. During his high school years, he lived in Hawaii and attended McKinley High School. That was where he met Soo Yoon. They were in the same grade. They shared classes. Those who knew him then described a high-performing student, academically strong, quiet, unremarkable in conduct, no disciplinary history, no reports of volatility, no known psychiatric treatment prior to the incident. He had an older brother. The family was financially stable. After Andy Ju completed college, his parents returned to China due to age. Before leaving, they transferred property ownership to their sons. Each received a residence. The Lake City apartment was one of those properties. After high school, Andy Ju and Soo Yoon did not remain in contact. Years passed without communication. They reconnected in March of that year. The reason was unclear. The resumption was abrupt. It did not follow continuity. It followed absence. Soo Yoon's history unfolded differently. She was born in China's Fujian province. Her early life was shaped by scarcity. When she was 5 months old, her father left for the United States to work. He sent money when he could. Her mother worked extended hours. Daily care fell to Soo Yoon's older brother, who was 4 years old at the time. Responsibility arrived before understanding. Soo Yoon had been born prematurely. Illness followed throughout childhood. The family treated her with caution. Attention centered on her health. In 2005, the family reunited in the United States through family-based immigration. Financial pressure persisted. Both parents continued working long hours. Again, her brother remained close. The circumstances accelerated her independence. During college, she paid her own tuition through part-time employment. She did not request financial support. She attended the University of Hawaii at Manoa. She completed her degree. After graduation, she accepted a position in human resources at the Sheraton Waikiki Hotel. Colleagues described her as quiet, polite, consistent. There were no conflicts on record, no instability noted. After her death, those descriptions did not change. 2 accounts stood apart. One was defined by fragmentation, uncertainty, gaps. The other was defined by continuity. Those close to Soo Yoon remembered additional details. She smiled easily. People relaxed around her. In her free time, she volunteered as an interpreter for newly arrived immigrants who could not read English. The work was unpaid. It left no formal documentation beyond those she assisted.
After March, communication between her and Andy Jew became routine. Messages, calls, daily exchanges. Near the end of the month, he asked if she would enter a relationship with him. She declined. Distance was the reason she gave. Hawaii and Seattle, two separate lives. Communication continued. A week later, he asked again. This time, she agreed. Circumstances had not changed, only the decision had. After that point, contact intensified. Daily video calls, often lasting over an hour. No missed days. Distance did not interrupt the pattern. By late April, Andy Jew traveled to Hawaii. He stayed for approximately 1 month. That period was consistently described as stable. Shared meals, outings, routine intimacy. No reported conflict. No one recalled warning signs.
The month ended without visible tension. When Andy Jew returned to Seattle at the end of May, he asked whether she would go with him. She declined. Her plans were already set. A trip to China had been arranged, tickets purchased, dates fixed. She returned to the United States at the end of June. He asked again if she would visit Seattle. She declined a second time. This time the reason was work. She had already taken extended leave. Additional time off could place her position at risk. She did not want to jeopardize it. The calendar advanced. The Chi-Chi festival approached. Her birthday followed shortly after. She requested time off well in advance. A flight was booked. The decision to visit was deliberate. The timing carried meaning. It was not impulsive. It was scheduled. Up to that point, there were no recorded disputes between them. They lived in separate cities. Time together was limited. Prolonged conflict had little opportunity to form. That absence would later become central. On August 9th, after landing in Seattle, she called her mother. She said she had arrived safely. That was the final call. That evening, her family tried to reach her. There was no answer. The next morning, they called again. The phone rang. It was not picked up. No immediate alarm followed. They assumed she was occupied. On August 12th, 1 day before her birthday, police contacted the family. The information required no elaboration. After the case entered public view, additional claims circulated online. Some users alleged Andy Jew had been married previously and divorced. Police confirmed the prior marriage. They did not release details. Other claims suggested Soo Yun resembled his former wife. Investigators did not substantiate this. The statements were noted and left unresolved. The family focused instead on what could be tested. Andy Jew said she behaved strangely, that she attacked him first, that his actions were defensive. He never described how the attack began. He did not specify what it involved. The claim remained incomplete. Medical findings introduced conflict. The forensic report showed no prohibited substances in Soo Yun's system, no stimulants, no hallucinogens. Her blood chemistry indicated sobriety. The absence altered the premise of his account. If she was not impaired, the behavior he described required another explanation. None was offered. The examination continued. Injuries were documented across her body. The pattern was consistent with blunt force, repeated impacts rather than a single event. Signs of resistance were present. Duration was implied. This raised another inconsistency. With injuries sustained over time, the absence of reported screams became difficult to reconcile. Adjacent units shared walls. No neighbors recalled cries for help. The object recovered from her airway was reconsidered. Its depth and placement were not accidental. Its size would have obstructed airflow and sound. For the family, the implication was direct.
The sphere did not function as aid, it functioned as restraint. Silence was not incidental, it was produced. The powder found on her body was tested. It was not cosmetic. Laboratory analysis identified a corrosive cleaning agent. Chemical burns were present and distinct from blunt force injuries. This contradicted the explanation that it had been applied in an attempt to help her. Taken together, the findings did not support accident. They did not support self-defense. The family reached their own conclusion. They believed the death was intentional. They also questioned the claim of drug use. There was no independent verification of what he said he had consumed. No toxicology confirming his condition at the time of the killing was released. From their perspective, another sequence remained possible. The act first, the substances later. In that scenario, instability was not the cause, it was the presentation. Andy Jew did not address these accusations. He offered no revised explanation. He did not respond publicly. His family did not engage with the victim's relatives. No apology was issued. No acknowledgement was made. Absence, too, can function as a response. Based on physical evidence and his own statements, prosecutors filed charges: first-degree murder, first-degree assault. The case entered the court system. Proceedings remain ongoing. No verdict has been issued. What remains fixed in the record does not require interpretation. Blunt force trauma, an object lodged in the airway, chemical burns from a cleaning agent, an admission of strangulation, an admission of submersion in water. The first section closes there. A separate record opens elsewhere. April 5, 2013. A patrol officer observed a traffic violation on the eastern side of the city. The vehicle was followed. The driver complied and pulled over. The name on the license was Aaron Wilkinson. The interaction did not stabilize. His attention drifted. His eyes repeatedly checked mirrors and the street. The officer noted the behavior while preparing a citation. Before the paperwork was completed, Wilkinson began pleading. The tone shifted abruptly. He did not contest the violation. He offered information instead. He said he could explain a plan involving a murder. The offer was not measured. It arrived fully formed. The officer had heard many attempts to avoid a ticket. This was not one of them. Backup was requested without announcement. A search of the vehicle followed. A handgun was located, ammunition with it. Wilkinson was restrained and transported to the station. At that moment, the truth of his claim was secondary. Possession alone was sufficient. At the station, the account continued. It did not retract. It expanded.
Wilkinson told investigators he had been instructed to travel from another city in Kentucky. The purpose, he said, was explicit. He had been sent to kill a woman. According to him, the instructions were written. He said the materials were kept at the place where he had been staying. Detectives did not delay. They followed him to the location. The package was recovered intact. Inside were photographs of a woman taken at different times of day. Notes outlined her routine. There was a hand-drawn layout of her residence. Entry points were marked. Timing was calculated. The language was procedural. There was no speculation in the materials, no emotional framing, only sequence. The documents were cataloged and set aside for federal review. Planning was established before motive was interrogated. Wilkinson then added a detail that changed the scope. He said he had not acted alone. There was another person involved. That statement altered urgency. The investigation widened immediately. Time was no longer abstract. The woman in the photographs was identified. Her name was Nancy Lam. By 2013, her life appeared insulated, financially stable, educated, visible within social and professional circles. Her husband was Chris Lam, an executive at a bank in Charleston, South Carolina. His reported annual income exceeded $700,000. They had met through a formal introduction. They married. They had 2 daughters. Outwardly, the structure held. Chris maintained professional obligations, social events, public presence. Nancy managed the internal sphere, household coordination, travel, appearances. The arrangement projected balance. Over time, that balance shifted. Chris began spending more nights away. The explanation centered on work, travel, late meetings. The pattern became regular. When he suggested separate bedrooms, the separation moved from implied to explicit. One call reached his office. A woman answered. Her accent was British. Chris dismissed it without pause. A personal assistant, an image choice, a business advantage. The explanation was immediate and rehearsed. The absences continued. Nancy did not confront him directly. Instead, she hired a private investigator. Quietly, no accusations were made. The investigation ran parallel to daily life. The findings confirmed what had already formed. Chris Lam was involved in an extramarital relationship. The involvement was sustained. The timeline overlapped with changes inside the home. The information was documented. It was not disclosed immediately. Separately, investigators examined Wilkinson's account against the recovered materials. The level of preparation exceeded opportunism. Surveillance had occurred. Scheduling had been considered. Entry and exit had been mapped. This was not a spontaneous act intercepted by chance. Attention turned toward origin. Wilkinson did not claim authorship of the plan. He described himself as a participant, not a designer. Payment had been discussed. Instructions had been provided. The direction came from elsewhere. Investigators traced communication channels, digital records, travel arrangements, financial movement. Each element was examined for linkage. The name Chris Lam entered the investigation formally. What followed did not depend on confession. The documentation existed independently. The materials established intent before execution. The sequence did not rely on interpretation. Nancy Lam was notified. Protective measures were implemented. The planned act was disrupted before contact occurred. The case transitioned jurisdictions. Federal authorities assumed control. What remained was motive, not mechanism. The record does not end with violence. It pauses at prevention, a plan constructed, a delivery interrupted, a life not taken. Another question replaced the first. Why planning was necessary at all.
There was another woman. Nancy confronted Chris directly. She stated what she knew. The expectation was limited. An explanation, an acknowledgement. Neither followed. Chris moved out shortly afterward. Asset control shifted immediately. Transfers were planned without discussion. The separation was not gradual. It was executed. The conflict did not begin with violence. It began with paperwork. Chris Lam went to authorities and claimed his wife intended to harm him. He sought a restraining order against Nancy. The allegation carried no supporting evidence. Nancy denied it in full. In court filings, she submitted documentation of his affairs. The record shifted. The claim against her did not hold. The separation proceeded through legal channels prior to divorce. They had been married for 24 years. Nancy sought distance, not retaliation. She expected resolution through procedure. At the same time, the plan against her had already progressed. Federal authorities were now involved. Wilkinson introduced another name, an accomplice. He referred to him as Sammy. Agents proposed cooperation. Wilkinson agreed. His role changed. He would continue communicating as if nothing had happened. The exchanges would be monitored. The calls began. Wilkinson asked questions framed as logistics, whether others were present, whether children were nearby. Sammy answered without hesitation. He instructed him to proceed regardless. The instruction did not include exceptions. The implication was immediate. If Wilkinson did not act, someone else might. The threat expanded. The target was no longer singular. The household was at risk. Wilkinson stated he did not know who had ordered the killing. His contact was only Sammy. Payment had been discussed, approximately $20,000 per person, more if the outcome could be made to resemble an accident. The condition remained unchanged. Nancy had to die. From that point forward, time was treated as hostile. A plan was active. A participant was already positioned. Authorities moved to intervene. On April 8th, Nancy's daughters, Emily and Madison, were home for spring break. The morning routine was ordinary. Water ran upstairs. Nancy was in the shower. The doorbell rang. Madison answered. Uniformed officers stood outside. When Nancy came downstairs, the living room was occupied. The presence was controlled but extensive. The explanation followed. Documents were shown. The message was direct. Someone had arranged her death. There was no attempt to soften the information. She was given a moment. Then a question was asked. Who would want this? Nancy answered without hesitation. She spoke about the divorce, about Chris, about the affairs, about accusations he had made against her, claims that she had been unfaithful, claims that she intended to kill him. She said those claims had altered everything. From her perspective, motive did not require speculation. Nancy and her daughters were relocated immediately. A secure location, no public notice. Chris Lom was not alerted. His public image remained intact temporarily. His position complicated timing. He was a senior banking executive. He moved easily through financial and social circles. Premature action risked collapse of the case. The inquiry remained quiet. What investigators uncovered removed uncertainty. Documents recovered from Wilkinson were traced back to Chris Lom's office. Paper stock, formatting, internal handling marks, the origin aligned. The photographs of Nancy matched images stored on Chris's personal phone and within family albums. They were not public images. The schedules were precise. Daily movements, family routines, names. The level of detail indicated proximity. This information did not come from observation. It came from access. Another device was examined. Chris's office phone contained voicemail messages from his personal assistant, Wendy Moore. The tone was familiar, personal, intimate. The record no longer depended on inference.
The professional boundary had been crossed. The relationship between Wendy Moore and Chris Lom exceeded employment. This aligned with prior testimony. Further inquiry into Wendy Moore revealed additional connections. Her past included work as a stripper. Reports linked her to an adult film production residence she had shared with a former husband, Sammy. Financial records and witness statements placed Wendy at the hotel where Wilkinson had been staying. She had delivered the envelope. Cash had exchanged hands at the front desk. The network closed in on itself. The structure revealed itself through overlap. Arrests followed quickly. Wendy Moore, aged 37. Sammy, aged 38. Aaron Wilkinson, 39. All were taken into custody. One name remained absent. Chris Lom could not be located. Wendy Moore declined to cooperate. She offered no statements, no clarification. Silence persisted. At that point, Nancy was asked a question. Where would he go? She answered without hesitation. She named a vacation property the family had used for years, a location associated with routine escape, familiar, not conspicuous. She contacted acquaintances in real estate. They confirmed recent activity consistent with occupancy. Police questioned the certainty. The location was over 5 hours away. Nancy did not waver. She said she would stake her life on it. The task force was dispatched by air. That night, at 9:30, a call reached her. Chris Lom had been arrested. The location matched exactly. Prediction did not require surveillance. With all 4 individuals in custody, the case moved forward. Financial records showed Chris had provided an initial payment of approximately $5,000. An additional $20,000 had been promised upon completion. The motive was clear: divorce avoidance, asset control. The plan had not relied on anger. It relied on removal. The case did not conclude cleanly. In June of that year, while awaiting trial, Sammy died in custody at 38. The death was ruled a suicide. A note was recovered, addressed to his girlfriend. The message was brief. He wrote he was finally free. He wrote that Satan was using memories to kill him. He ended with a declaration of love. No further explanation followed. Investigators considered motive. One possibility was avoidance. Testifying would have meant speaking against Wendy Moore, his former wife. Records indicated the emotional attachment had not fully dissolved. His choice ended that line of inquiry. One voice exited the record permanently. On August 12, 2013, proceedings resumed in Charleston, South Carolina. Chris Lom appeared in court. He was 50 years old. His prior standing was no longer referenced. The charge centered on orchestration. He was accused of directing the plan to have his arranged wife killed through intermediaries. The court accepted the evidence. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison for conspiracy to commit murder. Wendy Moore faced separate judgment. Her charges were broader: conspiracy, use of federal facilities to solicit murder for hire, and weapons-related violations connected to violent criminal activity. She received a sentence of 15 years. Aaron Wilkinson's outcome diverged. He had cooperated early. He entered a plea agreement. His testimony and compliance altered the trajectory of the investigation. He was sentenced to 4 years. The disparity was noted in the record.
Intervention did not erase culpability. It reduced consequence. The sequence ended without restoration. What remained were documents, sentences, and one interruption that arrived through a traffic stop. Nothing further was added.